A brilliant young scientist with a complicated lineage continues the work of generations past, work that many believe to be ungodly and against nature. This all, of course, is with hilarious results in Young Frankenstein. Young Frankenstein. This is today's review. This, of course, is a comedy classic from the master of comedy, Mel Brooks, starring the late, great Gene Wilder, who we lost recently, unfortunately, but, I mean, he certainly left us with a great body of work to enjoy. And probably other than Willy Wonka, I would say this is his best role, most celebrated, just so comedically brilliant in this film. And the movie itself, it is such a great parody. You know, it is kind of like a loving send-up of Universal's Frankenstein monster, you know, because everybody knows Frankenstein, right? Crazy, mad scientist. He reanimated dead tissue and, you know, created the monster, grr, you know, whatever. But the kind of innovative premise of this is, okay, what if he had a son, had a grandson? Gene Wilder plays his grandson in the film. What if someone wants to continue this work, but at the same time he kind of wants to stay away from the family name? So here he's trying to make his own life. You know, he's a well enough respected professor at a university, and he's doing scientific research of his own, and he's kind of plagued by the Frankenstein name, so much so that he's like, no, you don't pronounce it like that. It's Frankenstein, things like that. But ultimately, he does have to confront the past, and brilliant mind that he is, he's so tempted to continue that work, which he does, and that's pretty much the movie. Of course, he doesn't do it without the appropriate help. Great supporting cast in this movie, so excellent. You have Madeline Kahn playing his kind of ice cold fiance, you know, where he's like trying to kiss her. She's like, no, I just did my makeup. No, and he like blows her a kiss, and she's like, things like that. Marty Feldman, who plays Igor, who is the grandson of Igor from that, you know, he's like, Abby normal, and things like that. He's hilarious, so funny in this movie. Terry Garr playing the assistant as well. Roll is the hair. And Cloris Leachman as well. And as the monster, Peter Boyle, who's fucking awesome in this movie. So it's such a funny movie with such a great premise to it that it fulfills every kind of promise of such a comedic premise in a way that, yeah, it is a spoof movie, but it does definitely stay true to the characters, right? So, I mean, every good joke in the movie, I think it arises from the situation itself and the characters themselves. Even though it is kind of a silly thing, even if it does have jokes, it's not jokey, if that makes any sense. It's kind of hard to define what makes good comedy so good, but you kind of compare this to other spoof movies, even something like fairly more recent, like Scary Movie, which I like. It's like, oh, it's so overly silly, so many wacky, stupid things happening that you don't even think it's really taking place on planet Earth. So there has to be some kind of ground, some kind of rules, which I think this movie establishes well. At the same time, pulling very familiar things from the original Frankenstein movie. In fact, they do use the original lab equipment from the movie, which kind of gives it all the more a genuine kind of feel to it, which I like. And of course, there are very specific scenes that follow through with what we saw in Frankenstein, with kind of the comedic twists to them. Most notably, there's a great scene where, well, from Bride of Frankenstein, remember that scene where Frankenstein, he stumbles upon a little hut in the middle of nowhere where the blind man is. He strikes up a friendship, but then the mob comes in and takes him away, things like that. Here, it is a blind man who's played by Gene Hackman in one of the best cameos ever, actually. So it's him and the monster, Peter Boyle. And that's another thing, actually. Gene Hackman and Peter Boyle, that's kind of an interesting pairing, because one thing you might know about Peter Boyle is that he actually was originally offered the role of Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, which Gene Hackman obviously took and won an Oscar for and made him a huge star, so whatever. But it's interesting to see those two on screen. But the comedic kind of premise to that scene is that, okay, well, they're not really striking up a friendship. This blind man, he's blind and doing all this funny stuff. Maybe people will consider it insensitive today, but come on, get a sense of humor. He's like pouring soup in his lap, and he's like, here, take this cigar. And he lights his thumb and things like that. He's like, wait, where are you going? I was going to make espresso. I think it's hilarious. Such a great send-up of that scene. And you don't even really have to have seen Bride of Frankenstein to appreciate it, but it kind of makes it all the better, which is why it feels like such a loving tribute. And, you know, again, the humor just stems from kind of an appropriate kind of execution from the characters themselves. Again, Gene Wilder is just so on point in this movie. Such a great performance where we feel this genuine kind of shift from the shame of the name of the family Frankenstein to finally embracing it to really kind of going overboard into this comedic premise. And Gene Wilder, he's such a great comedic actor. You kind of wish he would have done more serious stuff, because not to devalue the great comedy that he did. He's so smart with his comedy, and it's hard to describe. Like, two of my favorite scenes in this movie, it's hard to describe the kind of comedy and the acting chops that he brings to it. Whereas I don't even know if there's like a word for this type of comedy. It's like an immediate contradiction of emotion, kind of, where like, okay, there's one scene where they're first trying to make the monster reanimate it, and, you know, lightning and everything like that. It doesn't work, and their experiment is a failure, and so he's just kind of calmly, he's like, well, it didn't work, but as with life, we have to expect failure sometimes, and when that happens, we have to acknowledge it with a quiet dignity. And he turns away slowly, and he goes back up to the monster. You son of a bitch! I'll kill you! And I just think that's very funny. It's just like the immediate kind of switch in that emotion. And also seeing when they bring the monster back from his, you know, escaping the laboratory. They have him locked up. He's like, okay, I gotta let this monster know that he is loved. Now, I'm gonna go in there, and whatever you do, don't let me out. Don't open the door. It will undo everything I am trying to accomplish. No matter how hard I scream, no matter how much I beg you, don't open the door. Gets in there. 1 second, monster comes up. Grr! He's like, open the goddamn door. Don't you know I was joking? Open the door! I just think it's funny. I don't know, it's hard to describe why that type of humor is so funny to me. And of course, you know, infamous scenes in the movie. Like, great, I wouldn't say it's like as quotable as something like say Spaceballs, even, which that's a very quotable movie. But this has like really great lines here and there. Like, one of my favorites is like, you know, they're approaching the castle, and he's helping her out of the haystack, and she has the low-cut dress, and he's looking at the door, but he's like, what, knockers? And she's like, oh, thank you, and things like that. And of course, the infamous scene, putting on the Ritz, you know, putting on the Ritz, and great stuff like that. So I think it is a brilliant movie, and a very funny movie, and a great kind of way to kind of kick off Halloween viewing, because I always like to start like a little bit kind of light. Like, this isn't really a horror movie, but it is a tribute to horror movies, which is just as good, and it really nails the atmosphere of it. Like, you feel like, say you're watching this on TV, like you're flipping through the channels or whatever, you would probably mistake this for a little bit for one of those movies, like for a classic Frankenstein movie, until finally like funny stuff starts happening. You're like, wait, what is this? So I think it really nails kind of the replication of the style, of the mood, of the sights and sounds of it. So I think it's just about a comedic masterpiece, really. I love it. Mel Brooks, you're the best. Gene Wilder, you're the best. So I love it. So if you haven't seen it, please check it out. But that's my review of Young Frankenstein. It's 31 Days of Horror. Plenty more reviews to come. Stay tuned for a new horror movie review each day. Until then, be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Visit Derek237.com. And until next time, I'll see you later.